So although it's only visual artists that is displayed in the exhibit, we also did a reception that included our performers, literary artists, music, and playwrights.
Ooh, the charm of the full-bib apron, pinner slip-on cobbler princess were the styles once worn. Scattered memories of the aprons left behind, baking, canning, dusting, hauling were the chores performed. Memories, ooh, a mundane piece of cloth made into an apron. Once known as the universal cover-up, used throughout centuries, has served one primary purpose: protection from soil. Men were the first in a variety of trades recorded to wear aprons. Yes, especially artists too. Early aprons shown in photos were very simple, and they were known as a belly apron. They look similar to this white piece of cloth. However, aprons in several decades have displayed a variety of fiber art also. As I advance my lifetime love for textiles, a multidisciplinary artist's journey began. We might say that the left tie represents the vintage collection. The right tie represents the creative side. A vintage apron worn during the Victorian era, known as a mourning apron, illustrates art used on clothing that represents the respect for the death of a loved one. You can see the artwork of tears. An Edwardian apron of the late 1800s was a joy to find, and upon further review on how the holes or the tears in that particular apron were mended by a very skilled hand, gave me the idea for Joys and Tears in the Apron Strings, in which 6 programs were written and are now taken on the road to public performances, such as you're hearing these first 2 minutes. 4 generations. 4 generations in my family were sure to wear aprons. Unrehearsed here. Okay, 4 generations in our family for sure wore aprons. Grandmother Mary's apron, as I used in the opening, is a full bib apron that illustrates some of the embroidery, the historic embroidery. Yep. Husbands and sons coming from World War II wanted to cook when they got home. Thus, a chef's apron for the men, with a variety of different cooking advice sayings on them were very popular. You see there's all different kinds of pieces of advice to the husband as he's trying to cook. All right, another one is the kids. A kid's apron is called a kid's world. Feed sack scraps were used by my mother to sew my little apron. And from homespun to gingham in the 50s and 60s, created many heirloom traditions. This particular set of aprons was given at a bridal shower. As you see, the one that has the lace at the bottom, that was bloomers for the bride, and the other was boxers for the groom. Tradition I'd love to get back into being. And then the right side, that one just hold down. The right side of the tie, as I identified, is my fiber art journey, which represents my original designs made from vintage textiles. And as Brenda pointed out, they're in the back. The 4 designs here at the art show are all using reclaimed fabrics. For example, the white pearl flower one is made from a feed sack from the turn of the century, where the mill was located in Lourdes. Every printed part of that feed sack is incorporated into the design. The string used to chain stitch the sack together is now the braid at the hem edge. So if you look real close, you'll see the string as it's couched onto the fabric. Candle wicking to chenille, an artist's journey, identifies the historical progression for making chenille, as it was first made in an early American folk art craft called candle wicking. Two other items that are used in the design is reverse applique, placing the flowers into the pocket and the skirt, and then the yarn design was couched on. The inspiration for dainty and fancy came from this apron, in which ribbon art is the embellishment. A goal of mine throughout the process of my Emerging Artist Grant was to learn how to do ribbon embroidery, and it was placed on dainty and fancy, the green apron in the back. Completing the design was calico fabric that I got from my mother's fabric stash, along with vintage hankies layered on the front skirt panel. Now, in some cultures, there really is a wedding apron. They use it at the meal, or sometimes at a special event during a dance. Wedding mementos is designed with many, many layers. Matter of fact, there's one spot in there that's got 8 layers of fabric. 4 wedding dresses and a variety of vintage linens and embellishments were used to complete that particular apron. So when the 2 ties of an apron make a bow, my fiber art becomes alive, both historically and artistically. Thank you.
One of those people, those modest Scandinavians who don't really like to talk about themselves, so this is tough. I got my grant. I do boutique, I work in boutique, and I got my grant to frame 20 pieces of art for a show that I had in Prairie, my very first show. And I'm just going to kind of read a description of what batik is, just in case you're not familiar with it. It's a method of decorating fabric using a wax resist process. Wax is melted to a liquid form and painted onto the fabric. When the dye is applied, the wax resists the color. The designs are done progressively from the lightest to the darkest color. Each color requires a separate waxing. When all of the color has been applied, the piece is ironed between newspapers to melt the wax out. All batiks are characterized by a veining effect created when the wax cracks and the dye seeps underneath. In traditional batik, the fabric is completely immersed into the dye, which sort of limits your color palette, because areas of the previous color not waxed will be dyed with the next color. So you have to make sure that your colors, the colors you're using, mix well, no complementary colors. It's a very messy and time-consuming process. I've modified a bit by painting my dye on, and this allows for more control over where the dye goes, and it allows unlimited use of colors. And it's much less messy and dries faster, since the only parts of the design are wet. I graduated from Gustavus in the Dark Ages, and I learned batik in one of my art education classes, and I loved it right from the start. I just love the unpredictability of it and the challenge of interpreting a picture using wax and dye. Over the years, I've worked in it from time to time. I've taught community ed classes. I did a school residency, but now I'm retired, and I finally have time and a place to work thanks to my husband, who gave me the office in his shop. Prairie Lakes has been a very important part of my professional and personal life for probably close to 20 years, maybe even more. I served on the board for 2 terms, and they were very instrumental in helping us in Montgomery form the Montgomery Arts and Heritage Center. I've been involved in writing numerous arts education grants, small arts grants, as well as several legacy grants. My Emerging Artist Grant gave me the confidence to try to actually show my work, and as a result of my grant, I've had shows at the Montgomery Arts and Heritage Center, the Waseca Art Center, and the NAG Gallery in Northfield. So I want to thank Brenda and Cindy for all of the support that they've given me through the years. And the Regional Arts Councils are so wonderful. It's such a wonderful resource, and we are so lucky to live in Minnesota where our legislature continues to fund them. So thank you so much, Brenda, and if there's any legislators here, thank you so much.
Another modest Scandinavian, yes, this is going to be pretty short. So, sure. Not used to microphones. So I've traditionally worked in bronze, and I've been in the city art sculpture block the past 4 years. And the first 2 years, I just had a couple of smaller bronzes, approximately this size. And I was a little frustrated with the scale. It's really difficult to work in a large scale in bronze, very, very labor intensive. So anyhow, my reason in applying for the grant was to do more of a fabricated process using sheet steel. So using the grant, I was able to buy steel and some tools, and these past 2 years I've had larger fabricated pieces in the city art sculpture line. Also, I wanted to try experimenting with some new modeling technique. And previously I kind of dabbled with forged steel, and I thought about applying the forging process to clay. And so all of the 3 pieces here were done using that process. Basically, just kind of hammering the clay into shape. And I even was starting to mess around with pneumatic hammer, which really forces and displaces the clay. I think you can see that a little better in the piece in the back. And so this was kind of an exciting process for me. It really kind of altered the form, and so I would kind of respond to that. And so it was a little more engaging process than a lot of times I just work in a small scale with a model and make enlargements. So I don't know, it was a little more fun to work this way. That's it. Any questions?
Yes, David, could you talk about the work you have at the Waseca Art Center right now, which covers 20-some years?
Oh, right. Yeah, so was asked by Scott Roberts over there if I wanted to have a show. And so, yeah, it covers a pretty long period of time. So I don't know, can't think of too much more to say.
20-some pieces? Are they all different, similar to this, or one brand new one?
Well, yeah, they're pretty much bronze, and the newest piece is a little larger scale.
He's very modest. Go over there and see.
Coming out today, it's pretty cool, and I appreciate the Prairie Lakes for having this and for the support for the arts. As you can see, I make teapot ceramics. Has been my thing for the last 25 years, probably. One thing about it, once you get out of the school setting, it's hard to get a critique. You don't get the feedback that you get while you're in that. And so I've been really fortunate because my wife also works in ceramics, so we do get conversations back and forth. With this group of work, they're mostly symmetrical, but she was talking about maybe pushing symmetry off just a little bit. And it's really difficult with the teapot form, but I like still working in the teapot. So one of them there you can really see has got kind of a twist that makes it feel a little bit awkward. But yeah, I was able to use the grant to purchase materials for making ceramics. The problem with these pots is they're hand thrown and then they're pulled spouts and different things. And there's a lot of tension within it. So when they're fired, I lose about 50%, so it's pretty disheartening. You get excited about opening the kiln, and then when you open it, you pull these pieces out, and then you can see cracks down the sides or spouts that are separated from the pot. So in that, it's been difficult. I don't know if many of you know much about me, but I work in a lot of different fields. So ceramics is the one that I've been doing the longest. But as Joe knows, I'm a pilot, and I've got one of my airplanes out in St. James. I make knives. I work in casting aluminum. Woodworking has been my most recent, so that's some of the things that I've been doing recently. Do you have any questions about the teapots?
Are you instructing in ceramics right now?
Not right now. This semester, I'm kind of on sabbatical. It's my first time in 12 years that I'm not teaching, so I'm able to work a lot in my shop, and I'm working a lot at wood. Again, like I said, my wife is an artist as well. So she's got a show coming up at Minneapolis Art Institute, and so she hired me to make an 8-foot by 8-foot pedestal for her. And so I've been working on that in my garage shop, and now they're going to change it to 6-foot by 8-foot. So I got some readings to do. Do you have any questions?
For Les? I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your pull towards the teapot as a functional item that you...
Yeah, so the thing is they are still functional. The spouts are hollow, the lids are removable. They're still functional, but I can't imagine somebody using them. You know, but the reason I use a teapot is there's a lot of expression, I think, in it. And, you know, there's a lot of different parts to it that, you know, I like to play with. So, you know, length of the spouts. You know, all these have the loopy spouts, but some of my past ones had handles that were separate from the spouts, so it just gives you quite a variation. Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Hi, my name is Mendez. I'm from Cuba, and I have those painting is acrylic, and took me a little bit of time to figure it out, but since Nick lined me up to keep my things together, so I have some show at the library, Taylor Library, and I have show at Carnegie Center, and now we come here. Thank you for coming to my show. And besides that, I'm Air Force navigator, seismologies, labor union construction from Minnesota. And yeah, we are doing painting, acrylic painting. And thank you for coming. So, any questions?
Chico's paintings are here on the far corner on the right-hand side to me. So they're abstract. Do you want to talk about the imagery in there or your inspiration for those pieces?
Well, the image in there is kind of improvisation. Mostly when I'm doing my painting, I take the brush, go into the canvas, and I never know what's going to happen. Sometimes I come up with some idea from my mind, start it out, and end up doing something else. Sometimes I take my painting and I'm going to do a touch-up. I'm going to touch it, you know, I'm not going to mess it up. And I end up doing what you see up there. And then when I look at it, oh my God, where is it coming from? Just leave it right there. It is. It's my painting. It's the way I do my painting. I never have anything on mind. So I call it improvisation. Kind of like that. Kandinsky used to call his painting, he was an improviser like I do. And that's what I do. And then all acrylic. I do some oil painting too, but the oil painting is just messy and not good for the environment because it's kind of toxic. And so acrylic, you know, get dry very quick and sometimes give you some kind of trouble, but you can control it better than the oil. And that's what
in St. Peter, and which is really, I like to think of it as Artists Anonymous in the sense that it's been over 30 years now, and started off with people like Joan Lean and Sarah Lee Goldman and Pam Beidleman, you may be aware of some of these names. But it, unlike the normal AA, this one feeds your addiction instead of cures you. So it's been very helpful and supportive to hand in, so to speak, while you're doing other things. The works that are here, there's a painting there, there's a couple upstairs, and I guess there's one right in the back too. These really are just studies in the sense that what I was really trying to do is just get my feet on the ground with oil painting. I hadn't done oil painting since high school. And after exhausting, not exactly exhausting, but after doing a lot of pastels, I thought maybe I should try to deepen. Actually, my wife said I should do this. She said, why don't you do oils? Well, first of all, I don't have any, you know. So Prairie Lake solved that problem, of course. But when I was working on the pastels too, I became aware of a person, Rose Branson, who grew up in a small Iowa town, eastern Iowa, named Montana, I think. I don't know how you pronounce it exactly, but it's not far from Davenport. But she set up in a storefront in town, in a small town. She opened a storefront, and she painted a portrait of anyone who was willing to sit for her. And out of that, she painted 180 portraits, which eventually were shown in the portrait gallery in Washington, D.C., and then at the big, I hope I say that right, big art museum in Davenport a little bit long ago. But this, she has a wonderful website too. But, this was a real inspiration to me in the sense that really it kind of is what I'm trying to do too. It's just these people, they come, they sit, paint them, and I don't know that it means anything. I sort of, in general, think art's like a magic. It's like a conjuring trick in the sense, they say Picasso said that art is a lie that reveals the truth. Well, I think he's at least half right. Art is definitely a lie, and it requires all our skill and cunning, but I don't think it really reveals the truth. So I paint illusions, which brings me to the words of that great American poet, Joni Mitchell, who you probably, well, maybe, I don't know how old these guys, but anyway, but you probably remember her song. I've looked at life from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's life's solutions I recall. And I just love that song. But I'm starting to recognize people. Anyway, so I find painting, the process is very interesting and intriguing and challenging. I get a lot out of it, and I hope you can enjoy it, bring some enjoyment to the rest of you as well. That's it.
Hello. Again, my name is Joellen Preston, and I'm an artist in Mankato. I wear a couple of different hats in the artistic community. I teach at Cato Public Charter School for 6th through 12th graders. And I also used to teach at LifeWorks. I had a program for 5 years where I worked with adults with disabilities, developing different creative opportunities for them, both in the classroom and also finding exhibition opportunities. And I also have a private art mentorship business where I teach youth and adults specialized individual programs and projects. So the grant that I got, it resulted in a body of work called Structural Integrity, and I showed it at the Art Center of St. Peter. I studied with 3 different groups, and I experienced a range of models, gestures, and poses at different figure co-ops. If anybody's not familiar with a figure co-op, it's basically a drawing group of artists who get together and they share the cost of a model. So what I did was I experienced 3 different groups, trying to find groups that had different techniques, different poses, different model types, just so that I could kind of expand my understanding of the co-ops and my portfolio of drawings. So I quickly found that I favored several different groups over others. My favorite co-op was run by Florence Hill in Northeast Minneapolis, and she's actually been running her co-op for over 40 years. And what she does is she holds it every single Sunday, whether it's bad weather, whether it's a holiday. If you want to draw, you go there and there will be a model to draw from, which is really incredible. Her co-op was run very traditionally with gestural poses that run 2 to 5 minutes in the beginning, and then towards the end you get the longer poses like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour pose. I generally prefer the shorter poses. From the pictures on the wall here, you can see that most of these are very quick gestural pieces, and they generally take about 5 to 10 minutes to draw. What I do is I build up different layers of drawings. I'll do one pose and then maybe the model will shift. Well, what do? Do you throw that sketch away or do you keep it? Yes, you retain it, exactly. Yeah, so what I would do is I would draw the model and I would connect with that model, and then I would rub out the picture and then draw another model on top of it to kind of build up a layer of stories, a layer of narratives. A couple of the other co-ops that I went to included MCAD and Dr. Sketchy's Anti-Art School. That's a fun name. I liked both of them equally, but not as much as Florence Hills. MCAD had very traditionally run co-ops as well with very traditional models and poses. Dr. Sketchy's Anti-Art School was held in a bar. So there was music and there was lights and there were people drinking. It was entertaining, but it was a little distracting for me. And that's what I liked about this grant, is being able to experience different environments and learn what was best for me artistically. And I love sharing it with everybody else here so that if you're interested, you can try out some of these co-ops as well. Let's see here. Through the experience, I developed a really strong and intimate connection to the models. I began to think about the human body, not just the surface, but also the bones underneath, the structure. The bones started to appear in my drawings, occasionally as strong lines or sometimes as whispers and underlayers. It reminded me of a phrase that I used to describe my own personal issues with bones and tissue, so I called it structural integrity. The term structural integrity refers to the ability of an item to hold together under a load, including its own weight, resisting breakage or bending. It assures that the construction will perform its design function during reasonable use for as long as the designed life of the structure. And I like to say, much like the facade and architecture of a building, I find the human body and bones necessarily and beautifully linked. So you'll see that in a lot of my work. I have had years of therapy on my wrists and on my legs. I have Prairie condition, which is I had several of the wrist bones die, and they had to reconstruct my joints so it's not as flexible or as strong as other joints. So I've developed a relatively pain-free way of working with my materials, using soft chalk pastels, using collage techniques, a lot of different drawing materials and tools. And I think that that really helped me when I was working with my adults with disabilities, understanding where they're coming from, where they're having challenges, and how to address those challenges and make adaptive tools and techniques for them. So I see this grant kind of crossing into lots of different areas in my artistic career. Let's see, I think that I'm just going to close by saying I'm so thankful for my grant, so thankful for this opportunity to go out to the cities, to find another community of artists that I can connect with. I know that when I go up to Florence Hills, I can say hi. I might not have been there for months, and they'll still remember me, and they'll come over and they'll ask me, how am I doing? They'll want to see what I've been working on. And it's just incredible to have that connection between the different cities. So, thank you. Any questions?
My name is Amber. I'll begin talking a little bit about my previous work. About 5 years ago, I started on a series of paintings that had to do with the process of dying. I began to research symbols pertaining to this process that culturally spoke to a large audience. I wanted these symbols to invite the viewer into the piece with a reassuring appearance and to ease them into the message. Death is not an easy topic to confront. I chose the symbol of the bird to represent a person or spirit. I chose a wilting flower to represent decay, and there were also more obvious symbols such as medicine spoons and hospital masks. I wanted the setting to invite, so I used romantic-inspired backgrounds and industrial linear ornamentation to, in a sense, welcome the viewer as you would be welcomed into a fairy tale book by its ornate cover. The story that I was telling was personal. When I started painting that series, I was watching my grandmother die of cancer. However, it didn't matter that the story was happening to me. Everyone has lost someone, so the story I was telling was no longer personal, but it was universal. As I was watching my grandmother die, I was noticing the people around me more. I noticed how they were reacting and how they were experiencing the various stages of grief. The stage that struck me the most was the bargaining stage. They all seemed to approach denial, anger, and depression in very similar ways, but bargaining came in all different forms. Bargaining had to do with whatever faith they were experiencing at the time. It could be faith in doctors, faith in medicine, faith in family, or faith in God. There was a specific look that came with this realization of faith, a look that seemed to mean that they had put their faith in what to come and accepted it. This is what led me to my current body of work. I wanted to capture that look of faith. I am still using the ornamentation and romantic backgrounds as an invitation and new symbols that illustrate the many different forms of faith. However, the mood has shifted just as it would shift from bargaining to acceptance. Early on in my research, I noticed that the eyes were important. They are what emote the look of faith. I also learned that it wasn't just anyone's eyes I could use, it had to be people that I knew. They had to be comfortable enough to show me what they had faith in. Needless to say, this led to some very strange photo sessions with family members. This series has been both therapeutic and a wonderful learning experience. I still have quite a few photos to use and a few more strange photo sessions to have. Thank you so much for this opportunity and the support to do what I love. Are there any questions?
This is artwork by Amy Sinning from Mankato. She's a fiber artist. She does different fabric dresses, and this was one she did for Raw Fusion, and it was a runway show where she created this work. She also created some work at the Children's Museum here in Mankato, a public art piece, which there are photographs of. So it's a fabric tree as part of the weeping willow tree at the Southern Minnesota Children's Museum here in Mankato.